When the Lord brought back the captivity of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue with singing. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad.
Bring back our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who continually goes forth weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him.
Now 3 times per year, the Israelite was expected to make the pilgrimage from their home to the temple in Jerusalem. Once for the Feast of Unleavened Bread and Passover, and then 7 weeks later for the Feast of Weeks or Pentecost, and then at the end of the harvest for the trumpets, Day of Atonement, and Feast of Tabernacles. Now the 126th Psalm fits best with the Feast of Weeks or at Pentecost. Here the high priest would ceremonially leave the temple with the crowd and parade to a nearby barley field. He would toss a large hoop into the crop and make a sheaf of grain to be brought back to the temple as a wave offering while he led the crowd. Then thanks would be given for the beginning of the harvest season. The waiting for crops to grow was over, and now the work of harvest had begun. The folks would go home and work hard at harvest and not be back into Jerusalem until the harvest was completed. Now in verses 1 through 3, it expresses the wonderful joy that's relived within us when something beautiful has happened and wonderful has happened. The psalmist said it was like a dream. These 3 verses remember a fantastic event of miraculous deliverance, a new beginning, a new song. There was shouting, there was laughing, there was singing, there was great joy. Something so amazing happened that even the unbelieving neighbors declared they knew it was of divine origin. The Lord has done this for them. This original event, we are not told what it was, and some good options in Israel's history could be after a famine or after a siege, possibly the divine intervention during Hezekiah's reign, after a captivity like the return from Babylon, or even after a plague. If all this was just about a good harvest, then why are the nations, the neighbors around them, amazed? But the harvest journey was a good time to remember that God brings his people through waters, through fires, through perils, and even uphill climbs. Just as there are seasons with planting and harvesting, there are seasons of hardship that end with great joy. So take time to remember past victories and share those memories. A trite saying is saying, I laughed, I cried, I bought the t-shirt. This psalmist tells us, don't just buy the t-shirt, wear it, and tell others about the event. Reminds me of where Jesus says in John 10:10, the thief does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. But I've come that they might have life and they might have it more abundantly. So share where you have found abundant life. Now in the 4th verse, he says, bring back our captivity, which also can be translated, reverse our fortunes. The images of the streams in the south is seen as a rainfall in the desert, how overnight an entirely different place is seen. The grass grows, the flowers are abundant. The desert comes alive with life. The psalmist is reminding the people to remind each other that in an instant everything can change. One word from the Lord, one touch from his loving hand, even the worst hardship is over. Sorrows turn to joy, mourning turns to dancing. You remember the miracles of Jesus taught in the Gospels? One touch, one word, a blind man sees, a lame man walks, a deaf man hears. And then there's verse 5 and 6, which brings us crashing back down to the mundane. Oh, but Lord, I'm still weeping, but one day I know I will rejoice. Here we are reminded to be working as we wait for that miracle, that answer to prayer. That work is a blessing, not a curse. Even Adam and Eve worked in the garden before sin entered the world. God did not call people who were sitting idle, but people who were working. Moses was tending his flocks, Gideon was threshing his wheat, Nehemiah was serving the king, Peter, James, and John were fishing, and even Matthew was sitting collecting taxes. You see, the farmer has to trust God for the increase of the harvest, for bread to eat, and even enough seed to plant the next crop. The farmer still has to work the ground and plant the crop and patiently wait for the increase, despite the weather and foreboding Middle East politics. One cannot reap if one does not sow. James told us in his epistle, faith without works is dead. So let our works be watered with tears and prayers as we continue to sow seeds of the good news to those around us. You know, some blessings God gives to us suddenly. Some blessings come in its season, like a rain in the desert. And some blessings come when we patiently sow, toil, and weep. But the promise is this, as we find in Galatians 6:9, let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap, if we do not lose heart. One day we too shall stand before the Lord of the harvest and be bringing in our sheaves. Now may the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.